I thought I'd lived for 65 years without major incident. And I don't believe in sin. Well, not many anyway. I say 65 years because I don't count my childhood. Not even my teenage years. The so-called wild years. And my doctor says I should be getting more rest. But I reckon I'll soon be getting all the rest I need. Funny how we don't take a long, harder look at ourselves until it's nearly time to go. So what's the good in that? Surely the time to take a long, hard look at yourself is when there's still time to do something about it. Suppose we don't all have the benefit of Scrooge's four ghosts. Is it possible to commit a sin if you don't have awareness? Now, I once asked that of someone with far greater theological insight than me. And they said the answer was that only the people who live in the rainforests who haven't been discovered by Christianity yet are guaranteed a place in heaven. And the reason for that is because they don't know if they've sinned or not. They don't know right from wrong. So I took it to mean that if you don't know right from wrong, then surely you can't do any wrong. Or any right for that matter. Now, I don't mean it like that, okay? All I'm trying to say is that when you're a child, you don't have any consciousness. Well, at least I didn't. I was animate. I would eat when I was hungry. I would drink when I was thirsty. I would sleep when I was tired. But I wasn't really aware of other people. I knew they were there and I'd bump into them occasionally. But I thought they were just like me. Blanks. Aye. That's the word, blank. I was a blank. And was I happy? Well, I don't know if you could say I was happy. But it's not like today. I wasn't unhappy. There was no sense of shame or hopelessness. I just didn't feel much of anything really. That is until I was 11 years old, when I fell for a girl called Trudy Love. And she was the first person outside my existence that I had any feelings for. And you can call it biology, but I don't remember my thoughts for her being impure. In fact, Trudy, without doing anything to earn it, achieved total greatness and flawlessness in my life. Now, as did you, but only much more strongly, much more understandably. Trudy was just a momentary obsession who didn't even know I existed. But I wanted to ask your opinion on this thing. I just thought with you being in close proximity to you know who up there, some of that celestial wisdom is bound to have rubbed off. I reversed into her. She looked old. And then I saw her leg broken like that. There was no one else around. And I knew she was done for, but I couldn't leave her. Now, to bear with me, I wanted to leave her, but instead I stayed and made things worse. Because in my head I could hear this once pure and harmonious being crying out in such pain. And I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted to run away. I wanted the whole thing not to have happened. But it did happen. And the only decent thing to do is to deliver the fatal blow. Now, how easy that sounds. But how terrible it is in the hands of an amateur. My hands trembled as I picked up the axe. And I couldn't find the fatal blow because my hands weren't strong enough. And her infernal groans and screams and that echo, so loud, someone's bound to hear. But with the adrenaline pumping through my veins, blocking out any love or compassion I once felt for her, I dealt a few swift and decisive blows, bringing this terrible odyssey to an end. Now you know you're not a natural born killer. And as you swing and cleave away, you think of yourself a slightly better human being because killing doesn't come naturally to you. But kill you must. You cannot leave this once beautiful creature in such hideous agony. And still she lives. In her hideous agony she lives. And in her living she taunts me. The only decent thing is to put her out of her misery. But she tells me that she's going to take me with her. Not literally, of course. But she says, "You must murder me. You must commit murder." So cool your blood and finish this terrible deed that you've started. You've now passed the point of no return. So I silenced her groans and her screams and her moans. And in that silence, I took her apart, bit by bit. And each day, I took those smaller bits into the house and put them on the fire with coal. Until all I'm left with now is her cold, iron heart. I knew we shouldn't have left that piano in the garage. We should have found it at home, like we said. I've lost a lot of my fire over the years. And I used to blame you for taming me, making me a more sociable being. But I think what really happened was I'd become unnaturally timid. And I suppose you can call it a kind of moral cowardice. Worrying about things, inanimate objects, no matter how beautiful or ornate. When it's people that matters really. All this talk of Palmyra. Objects are easy. It's everything to do with people is difficult. And as the years go by, you begin to think that every decision you ever made was wrong. People think that murder is always dramatic. But that's not always the case. Some are quiet, go unnoticed, unpunished. No investigation, no trial. But there's always a body, sometimes several. You see, Doris was not my only victim. I'm afraid I really am a murderer. And I don't want to talk to you about this because I'm ashamed. Ashamed to tell you who thought me good, who esteemed me, who loved me. My fall in your eyes will be worse than any hangman's noose. And this is a kind of judgment day for me, and I'm not worried about him. It's you, your censure that matters. You remember Phil Townsend? Englishman. Small, wiry build. Was married to Karen, who used to be O'Gorman. Her father had that business. Doesn't matter. I digress to hide my shame. Anyway, I worked with Phil in the council back in '66. Remember, I worked in the council for a while before I went to Armtech. I was his foreman. And he was a quiet man, unassuming, with a large family. And every week for months, Phil would come to me, asking to get put on the overtime roster. But I wouldn't put him on the roster, even though he came to me in good faith, thinking me a mate. And he was as good a worker as any man there. But yet I wouldn't put him on the roster. And I knew he was very poor. We were all poor back in the day. But he was poor even by our standards. I was in his house once. Nothing more than a shack, really. They had nothing. Not even running water. But Phil was a cheerful man. And his wife and family were happy. They were happy. Yet they had nothing. Anyway, after a couple of years, Phil died. And like the hypocrite I am, I went to his funeral, commiserated with his distraught wife and his devastated children. Now, they always say devastated or heartbroken. But when I looked in their red, weather-beaten faces, I could see the grief and the terror and the pain that had been inflicted on them by this loss. It must be awful for a child to lose a good parent. And he was good. I could see it in the look of love in his children's eyes. And I knew that there was days when he would go hungry so that his family could eat. And I had the power to put him on the roster. But I wouldn't, out of spite. There was no outcry over Phil. Nobody suspected a plot in his demise. But there was a malicious hand at work. A perfect murder. What a lot I could have done with the little power that I had. Instead, I used it to block a struggling man, a good father. But it was hardship that killed him, just as much as my contempt for a good man. I see his children sometimes. And they have children of their own now. His widow's living with her eldest daughter and her handicapped child. But he laughed at me. I was trying to impress a woman, show her how clever I was. And he had the audacity to laugh at me. And then everybody laughed. And I smiled broadly as if I was taking it all in good part. One word. He latched on to one word. I said compensation instead of condensation. I suppose, looking back on it now, it was funny. I said that the houses were so damp that the compensation was running down the walls. And then Philip said something like, don't let the lawyers hear that. Don't let the lawyers hear about that one. But all I could hear was muffled laughter, as if there was water in my ears. And my cheeks burned, but I couldn't think of anything to say. I never can. That's why I don't take part in the banter. And people think I'm quiet, but I'm not quiet really. Some say that your hearing becomes muffled when you go into a state of shock. But surely embarrassment or even humiliation wouldn't cause shock, would it? Anyway, things are going to be all right. 78,300 quid. mostly in £50 notes. I know the place is worth a lot more than that, but the deal was they'd pay up front and give me a month to clear the place out. But I'm worried about how to send it. You're going to have to help me. And I know you're not responsible, but you can still help. What's that? Send it along with a letter explaining everything. Darn it, why didn't I think of that? That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, parcel. Inside for me.
Thank you.
What is it? No.
There's millions and millions. Can I keep some?
No. Go on your way up to your room and get a good girl every minute.
Can I keep some?
No, go on with you. Dear Mrs. Townsend, you probably don't remember me. Many years ago, I refused to allow your late husband, Philip, God rest his soul, the overtime he was entitled to.
He worked hard and on many occasions asked for my help, but I didn't give it. I regret that now, and enclose this money as compensation for you and your family. It will not, I know, undo the harm I have done, but perhaps you would be good enough to think of it as a legacy Philip would have loved to leave for his family. I am ashamed of the person I used to be. Please try to forgive me. Yours in contrition, Thomas and Nola. A letter has come. Remember how you used to always love opening letters. Now, right, let's see. Dear Mr. Enola, thanks for the money. I forgive you. Karen Townsend. Short and sweet. She forgives me? That's not how you write a letter of forgiveness. I don't feel forgiven. In fact, I think I felt better before. And look, she's even spelt the word forgive wrong. I suppose it was good of her to write at all. Maybe when it all sinks in, I'll feel better later. She forgives me. This time next week, I'm going to be homeless. But I've made other arrangements.
I could be wrong, but if you can't change, then you've been here for much too long. You live in the past, you're stuck in happens anyway.